Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and to another recent reads video, my Sunday video, fairly regular, in which I discuss the books that I finished last week. Or sometimes I forget a book and then it's a week before that. But before we get into the books, and I have only 2 books that I've finished, but 4 books that coming next. I want to announce that there won't be a video next Wednesday. What is that? The 7th, is it? The 7th, yes, because I am traveling. I'm visiting my mom next week, and then I just don't have time, opportunity, to film. So the next video will be a week from now, next Sunday. Anyway, on to the books. So I said 2 books that I've finished. The first one is a nonfiction book that I read together with Heidi from my reading life, and that is Jennifer Ackerman, What an Owl Knows, published last year, and this was also a Christmas present from Heidi. So she gave me that, and we read it together. Jennifer Ackerman is a science writer, nature writer. I read her previous, and focus on birds. I read a previous book of hers, The Genius of Birds, and I thought that was fantastic. I gave that book to so many people as a present. And this one is, like it says, focusing on owls. And I really, really enjoyed it. Again, this is a kind of a special interest book. If you think birds are boring and owls, what the F, this is not for you. But if you have, like me, the slightest interest in those animals, you will love this book. I'm not a bird watcher. I mean, I'm not a nature girl. You know that. I grew up in a city. I live in a city. I can hardly identify, a blackbird. But that's, and a sparrow. That's basically it. So I'm really not the bird watching kind of type. And still, I think Jennifer Ackerman's books about birds are just fantastic. And this one, she looks at various aspects of owls. She tells us, the different types of owls, about their feeding, about hunting, because they are, they look really sweet with their round faces, but they are raptor birds, so they are predators. Also how they nest, how they have their youngs, the owlets, I think it's called in English, whether or not they migrate. I learned really a lot of interesting, fascinating details about this bird. She also looks at mythology, why we are so fascinated with birds. She looks at conservation issues. Of course, as always, humans are the biggest threat to owls. So it's really, the various aspect of an owl life. Oh, language, what they sing and how they hoot. And it's, what I really love and appreciate about Jennifer Ackerman is that she is able, like a good science writer should be, but some are not, she is able to convey really a ton of information without ever having this kind of boring info dumpy style. She mixes information with interviews she has with people who are working in owl conservation or researchers, scientists, but also volunteers. So it's always a very good mix, almost like you would structure a novel. So it's never she does her research and she just dumps it on you. No, she tells you a really interesting story. So I thought this was excellent. Like I said, I learned a lot. And the book also, gave me an idea that maybe I could do something. I'm fascinated by owls, so oils. And there is an owl conservation station near Cologne, so I will check that out and maybe I can volunteer there. So there you go. The next book was also a buddy read, this time with JoSmith, whom you all know. She doesn't have a channel or any internet presence, but if you are on BookTube, you know JoSmith. And we read an Indian novel together, The Blind Matriarch by Namita Gokhale, published in 2021. This is on my 1001 books by female authors that I want to read before I die list. Also, I had never heard about this author. Shame on me, because she is a really successful, famous Indian author. She was born in 1968, so she's a contemporary author, and she has 58, and she has published something like 20 novels. So, but this is my first. And as Joe pointed out to me, I didn't realize it, but the cover is actually embroidery. So, and birds play a role in the book. It's a slim little book about a family centering around the blind matriarch, 80-year-old. I always have difficulties remembering names, as you know. Matangima lives with her family in a house in Delhi. She has 3 children, 2 sons and a daughter. The daughter lives on the ground floor. Then the oldest son lives above that, and then the younger son with his wife and a young child on the 3rd floor, and she lives on the top or something. I'm not sure I got all the floors right, but anyway, so this is about that family. But spoiler alert, this book is set during 2020, the first lockdown, the COVID lockdown. And it is focusing, especially in the second half of the book, on the effects of the corona pandemic, the lockdown or quarantine, how it affected various people. So if I probably wouldn't have picked this book up if I had known that, because if you follow my channel, you know that I'm not yet ready to read a COVID book. Louisa Erdrich's latest novel, The Sentence, was also set during COVID, and I really struggled with that part, even though I liked the rest. Yeah, it was set in a bookstore, so what's not to like? And here, the first part, I didn't mind because the focus was much more on the family dynamics, on the various backgrounds of the various children, what they did. For instance, the daughter, Shanta, is a very successful NGO worker who travels the world, or traveled because now she's in quarantine or lockdown. So, but the second half of the book became more and more a COVID-focused book. So if you are not into that, this is probably not the best book of this author to pick up. I liked it, but I didn't love it. And not only because of the COVID theme. I thought the first part, like I said, was really good. And then there were a couple of things. There was characters in the book that I thought, why is this character in the book at all? Didn't seem to have any real purpose. There were certain actions of characters that I felt, so maybe you thought there had to be some kind of, action scene. I mean, not that they are beating each other or anything, but it's a really quiet book. And sometimes I felt that the author included certain scenes, revelations or confessions or something like that, just in order to keep the reader engaged. But it did not really work that well with me. I will keep this book on the 1001 list because it's not a bad book. And it's interesting, the perspective that she gives and on the family and how various family members deal with this situation. And I thought, excuse me, I thought the main character, the blind matriarch, was a really fascinating person. We learn about how she became a blind woman, or maybe she even forced herself to become a blind. It's really interesting, her background and her story, and the quietness of it all. But in the end, it was only a partial success, I would say. But I certainly want to pick up something else by this author, for sure. So these are the two books that I finished last week. And then what I do is what's up next. So the books that I'm reading now and most likely to finish soon. Well, the first one, I don't think I will finish that soon because it's a big one. And that's Romantic Outlaws by Charlotte Gordon. This is a nonfiction book about Mary Wollstonecraft and her daughter Mary Shelley. So it's a double biography, and I'm reading this. It's also on the 1001 female authors, books by female authors I want to read, because I combine fiction and nonfiction in my own personal list. But I also read this for the readathon in memoriam for Jennifer Brooks. We love Jenny, hashtag we love Jenny. You will find, and she loved this book, so that's why I'm reading this. But I'm halfway through, but I don't think I will be ready. I will be finished with this book by the next check-in. And that also goes for the next one, which is a buddy read with Lisa, a relatively new booktuber that if you haven't heard of her, you absolutely have to check her out. Her channel is, I will leave a link below, but her channel is called the Unhinged Woman Bookclub. I mean, hey, what more do you need? And we are reading Sarah Waters' Tipping the Velvet together. This is my first Sarah Waters. This is also on the 1001 list, and it's her debut novel set in Victorian England, talking about a young woman, Nancy, who is working in an oyster bar. Her parents run an oyster place, a restaurant, but she ventures off to London and becomes a musical kind of vaudeville star. And it's, I don't think we will have finished this one before the end of the month. And two more buddy reads. This one, nonfiction, The Personality Brokers by Merv Emre. This is about the Myers-Briggs. If you are, certainly if you live in the US, but even us in Europe, you have probably either heard of it or took the test for a company, or just because you wanted to. It's one of the most famous, I think, personality tests it's now a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, and a lot of companies have their employees, or when you are interviewing for a job, have their prospective new employees take the test. I'm reading this with Kathleen from Kathleen Ann, and she told me that in the 1990s, certainly in Silicon Valley, this was huge. Everybody had to take this test. I took the test as well, once for a company and twice just for a psychological testing thing that I had to do. So it's really famous. And this is the background of it. I think it's fascinating. These two women who came up with the whole thing. So yeah, that was a bit of a long venture. And the last one is a buddy read with Heidi from my reading life. And as you know, we are making our way through the Linley series, the mystery series by Elizabeth George, and we're now on to book 9, Deception on His Mind, where there is a murder in a small community on the coast of Essex, Belford-Lenay. And we're trying now to read one every other month, and if we keep up that tempo, we will be au courant. So, Elizabeth George might publish something, but not 5 books in the next year. So we will be up to date by the end of next year because there are 23 of them or something, and we are at number 9. Anyway, so these are the 2 books that I've finished and the 4 books that I'm working on. When I'm at my mom's, I'm not taking that many books, so I might, that's why it takes longer probably for me to finish them. But the next video will be a book haul, spoiler alert anyway, next Sunday. So no video on Wednesday, next video a week from now. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this one. Leave a comment if you're so inclined. I'm always looking forward to that. You know it, even though it takes me sometimes a little while to answer them. And I'll see you all soon in the next one, next Sunday.